How was that? Good, good. It's wonderful that you are all here, that you have come to join us this Friday evening for this incredible film. My name is Claudia Seymour, and I have truly the honor to be part of this evening and to be part of this discussion. We're going to have the next sort of 45 minutes or so together to talk about what we have just seen. We're going to do that together with Fleur Vasseur. Could you please come and join? Fleur, that was amazing, and we're all going to tell you about that. As well as we have Louise Mabulo, who is the Youth Activist Summit winner for this year. It's great that you got to see that just now as well.
Spectacular.
Yeah. So what we're going to do now, I'm going to ask a few questions to our two leaders, visionaries, and creators right here. And then I'm going to ask all of you as well to join in the discussion. I think that's really important. I think we've all been inspired in unique and different ways. And I think there's a lot that we could do among ourselves this evening so that when we leave this room, we leave feeling that indeed there is something that we can each do. Should I speak louder? Thank you. Should I start again? So wonderful. So I will encourage all of you to speak as well as we're here. If some of you are going to be leaving before I've been asked by the Youth Activist Summit to invite you to take a copy of the book that's outside, Know Your Rights and Claim Them, a guide for youth from Amnesty International. So I think that this is your gift that you can go home and read. Even if you're no longer a youth, you can still take a copy with you. So Fleur, that was wonderful, and I think all of us would like to hear from you. How did this story happen? Fleur is a storyteller, a writer, a director. How did this particular story get born, and what did it take to bring it here tonight?
Well, thank you. Thank you for inviting me. It makes a lot of sense to be here and to meet you. You know why I was telling you this is your tribe. I'm happy you've seen it. Well, I've been a writer for the last 15 years. My work is really twofold. The first thing is I try to understand the mess we are in. So I do books, I do fiction books. And then to save my own sanity, because I'm going quite deep into the explanation of what is happening, I'm writing on people who inspires me, and these are activists, entrepreneurs, artists. And I've started following the roots of activists 10 years ago. And then, you know, I just follow a thread, and the last person I met was Edward Snowden. I did a movie with him in Moscow for Arte. It's free, it's online, it's on YouTube, you can watch it. And that happened in 2016, and I thought I was at the top of what I was able to do. You know, meeting Edward Snowden and doing something with this great person was just like a huge achievement. And I hoped it would, you know, inspire people. And I just realized that, you know, people were saying, yeah, it's nice, thank you, but, you know, nobody really took the street nor anything. So I was kind of at the moment where I was quite disappointed. And at the very same moment, my own son, 7 years old, asked me the question that I think every parent's fear, which was, Mama, what does it mean when people say the planet is going to die? And he was 7 years old, and even though I had been working on climate, on the economy, everything, for years, I was not able to have answers for him, like that a 7 or 8 years old can understand and grasp and do something with him. And I was talking to him about Edward Snowden, but it was like it was not in his fear nor anything. And so that triggered a big conversation with him, and I realized that I had to do something to address his generation and his anxiety. And on the very same day, as I was realizing that not only my work was going nowhere, but I was not able to answer my own son's question, one of my best friends, Bruno Giussani here, sent me a link of a TED Talk by Melati. it was really the same day. And at the very first, I watched it and I was like, yeah, what does it mean? Why is he sending me this? You know, like 2 kids changing the world? No, you know. And I just like turn it away. And my son came back from school and say, Mama, so you have an idea now of what film you're gonna do for me? And I say, no, why? Oh, you sure? No. Okay. So he asked me the question 3 times on the same afternoon or evening. And the 3rd time, I said, okay, you know what? I'll come back. And I went back and watched this TED Talk again. And I cried, discovering Melati. And I jumped on the plane and did the first story with her on Arte, for Arte. And I thought that, you know, I was done with doing something for my kids, you know. I think, okay, I'm going to do this little movie. And then I go back to my big question on democracy, etc., and Snowden, etc. Except that when I met Melati, I was just blown away. She was 16 at that time. She already had this charisma, this idea, and this, you know, this strength. And I also felt immediately that there was 2 things with her. One, she was already exhausted, so be careful. Because this kind of work is extremely demanding, and they are alone, and obviously the media adore them, but you know, it's just like a circus, and they got, and Melati was already at her 2nd burnout. So she was fighting to have this ban, but she was doing plenty of things, but she was tired and she was feeling alone. So we get along through this first work very well. And I said to her, you know what, you have to meet your tribe. You have to understand that you're not alone, because if not, you're going to stop. And for the many activists that I've seen, a lot of them stop because they are too alone. So we have a responsibility as an adult to try to, you know, enable this kind of connection. And so we decided, I suggested to her, let's go around the world and meet people your kind. And obviously that was before COVID. That was, you know, this perfect world where we could travel like this. So we did that, and that is how it happened.
That's wonderful. That's a wonderful story. I love your son for holding you accountable, for making sure that you do not sleep, because that image that Winnie
and my
tells
daughter
us,
is the same now, because when the film was done, she said, a movie, well, okay. And what now? I see the movie, and what do I do now? So, Maman, do a website, do things, and then I do something else.
So that accountability that actually goes upwards and downwards, that's really quite beautiful. And thank you, Bruno, for having sent the film to Flore in the first place. So this ties beautifully, because this finding of the tribe, and I've understood that you are friends with Melati as well, so these young leaders are meeting together, and they have not yet met in person, but they connect, and they're actively, in very substantive ways, talking with each other. And so here, Louise, I would love for you to tell a little bit about your story to our audience, because you have a very interesting story. And would you let me just let you know that you found your way to this youth activism in the Philippines, to the Cacao Project, via her stardom as the junior master chef in the Philippines. And it's through that activism that led to the work that you're doing today. So would you like to share a little bit of your story?
Absolutely. Hi, everyone. My name is Louise. I'm here in Geneva for the Young Activist Summit, and I'm one of 6 laureates who are doing amazing things around the world, really, to solve some of the issues of our time, much like the activists that we just watched today. And what I do, really, is work with farmers in my hometown, and I have this social venture called the Cacao Project, which we currently work with over 200 farmers, but it began in the aftermath of Super Typhoon Nok 10, and we were really driven, like many of the young people we're seeing, because of the urgency of the matter of the climate crisis and soil degradation. And it was this issue that it was a turning point. Super Typhoon Nok 10 destroyed 80% of agricultural land in my hometown alone. And this meant that for months and years to come, people would lose a livelihood and income and not even be able to put food on the table at night. So I helped build a typhoon relief effort, and we looked into disaster-resilient crops like cocoa, and actually help those farmers with skills training and entrepreneurship and finances so that they could have a better livelihood and a better quality of life. And so that's how the Cacao Project was formed. We work with over 200 farmers. We've planted over 85,000 trees over a span of 85 hectares of land. And we really want to make sure that farmers at the grassroots level are empowered to be part of the mission to regenerate landscapes and reforest all our mountains and not feel so alone, but also have that kind of autonomy and agency over their own future.
That's wonderful. And what your story is showing us is that this is a global problem. And we see in the film about food insecurity. And if we want to explain the migration situation in Europe today, it's a food security situation. And so the work that you're doing in food really is a local story as well. And I think this, for those of you who are in here, and I know some of you are working very hard as youth activists, we start local. We start in our own world. It's through that that we can actually start making a difference. And I think what you're doing in the Philippines is local, it's actionable. We can do it now, right now. You did it during the typhoon and the next day and the day after that and the day after that, and then 85,000 trees later. Look at where you are. So I think there's a lot of courage and inspiration to draw from this story. And someone is calling to tell us that they too have just planted a tree. So thank you. Would you like to answer? So there is something about and Winnie says this in the film, and I think your story, even though it's so different, even though the Philippines is very far away from a refugee camp in Uganda, there is striking parallels between what is being done on the ground and very effective life-saving work is happening on the ground. How can we connect that to the powers that are? And Winnie talks about, so fine for the farmers, we're now subsisting somehow, but we are very far away from those in power and those with, the class. She uses the word to talk about class. So what do you think? And I'd actually like to ask you, Flore, as well, because you've seen both sides of it as well. So how do we do the local work, but then also connect upwards, the Frantz Fanon ground up change that is required. And I feel that there's a lot of groundwork being done, but we're missing the upward connection. So what would you wish to offer? And some of the people in this room are indeed very powerful. We're all very privileged. So what would you want us to be doing? So I'll ask you first, Louise, and then I'll ask Flore the same question. And then I'm coming to all of you to ask your questions.
Absolutely, that's an excellent question. And I think what needs to be addressed is, first of all, that disconnect still exists, and it's pervasive and prevalent in governments, in policy making, and it's still there, and we're still finding solutions. So it's an ongoing thing we're trying to see. First of all, films like these spread awareness and show us that disconnect exists. It's there. We need to do something about it. And it also shows us that despite the fact that we have these policy-making bodies and a lot of climate action at the global level, there are infinitely hundreds, maybe thousands of young people around the world with these initiatives that are doing something meaningful that's tailor-fit to their landscapes, their local ecosystems. And it's a matter of recognizing that, supporting them in any way we can. Young Activist Summit has done that for me and 5 other laureates and for the past 3 years. And really making sure that we have that exposure and reach out to more people, and also find ways that you can, as individuals, take action, whether it's supporting our initiatives or spreading awareness or doing your own local actions within your communities that steward a culture of change making and sustainability and awareness.
Wonderful. Yes. All right.
Yeah.
Here. Yes.
I will just, I absolutely agree with you. I love one sentence of another activist called Adélaïde Charlier. I don't know if you know her. She's from Belgium, and she's really has put a lot of kids in the street for the climate march. And she was telling me, politicians are followers. So yes, there's plenty of activists. So first of all, our duty is really to pay attention and to help them. And we adults and we the privileged. I hate this word, but this is like just pay attention and consider what they are doing and just try to help. Not do the thing for them, but really like protect this energy for it to grow and deploy. And the other thing is that the missing link between these activists and the politicians are exactly us. The moment we consider these actions and these people are the true heroes of our time, the minute we consider that these are the ones that we need to follow, the minute we consider these are the leaders, really I hate these words, but we have seen what was happening at the COP. I mean, when we change our priority, our mindset, our values, we change what they are looking at and how they are making the decision. With the film, we are experiencing something quite interesting, is that the film is really used by teachers. So if there's teachers in the room, I want to talk with you. Because they understand that they are on the front line of what the kids have in their mind today, and how they shape their future, how they shape their values, how they shape their decision. And they are quite alone on the front line. And this kind of film, and this is not the only one, can help. So we are here. Because the minute the discussion is changing in schools, it will change in parliament and everywhere. So that's the thing. And that's something that Edward Snowden told me. We have a value problem. What we value is meaningless. The moment we change our values and, again, what we value and the true heroes of our time, I mean, as long as celebrities are the same, I mean, we are the story that we are telling. We are the story that we are telling each other. Now, let's choose the story, and then the story will change.
That's beautiful. And as we were meeting just before this, you said something very profound in terms of shifting the narrative. So there is a lot of guilt that comes with this privilege. And, oh, we must go and help, this sort of moral imperative to help the people out there. In fact, and this comes across perfectly in the film, through activism, we bring our own lives tremendous meaning.
Not only meaning, but this is something that I was not expecting. Again, that I told you the story, so you know that whole story for me started with my own son, you know, confronting me on what I was doing. So I could have felt guilty. But the resolution of this is really a path of love and of joy, because what I've learned, and I was not expecting this, is when I came and in Uganda or Malawi, etc. I was really expecting to it's a war zone. Yeah, you have to be psychologically quite fit. And honestly, yeah, the situation was dramatic, but. People were just so resilient and alive, and I saw that the activists I met were just full of life and of passion. And this is Mohammed also telling me. Mohammed, remember the guy who built school in Lebanon, Syrian guy. He said, but you know, and I decided not to put that in the film, but he said, the people that I'm surrounding with, the young people that I'm surrounding with in Sweden, where he has found asylum, are much more in despair than the kids in the camps. I decided not to put that because I think we need context to understand that. But it's true. I mean, I saw that. I mean, we have a really big problem with what we are telling and what we are doing with our youth. And again, Mohammed framed that perfectly. Everything is done for them to be deactivated. And we, the adult in the room, or said to be the adult in the room, have a huge responsibility on this. And this is not only, again, this is not about guilt or duty nor anything. It's the very idea of protecting life. And that is starting with their own sanity and their own... in the lives of our kids.
Yeah. And that protection of the life, the interconnection between the lives. And the young man in Colorado, I think, the way he talks about nature and our interconnection, you can understand that how these narratives have kept us from seeing the truth, that they've allowed us to stay in this state of collective denial. Once you see something, you cannot unsee it. You can deny it, but it's seen. And all of us here, we see, we know, and there is where our place of action and agency, I think. Would anyone in the audience like to contribute something to our discussion? I see one young man over here with his hand raised.
Thank you very much for this inspiring movie. I am working with Right Livelihood just here in that building. We also give awards to courageous change makers like Edward Snowden. And one tension I face when telling these stories of change, of these courageous change makers, is that we usually tell them as individual stories, as stories of heroes. But my observation is that change comes from people power, from movements, from collectives. And I'd like to understand how you were, if you were facing questions like that for the movie and how you dealt with it.
You mean because I have tell the story of one individual and do not tell the story of the people around them, etc.? Is this your question?
Yeah, my question is more like, if you share that observation in looking at the contexts and the examples you met, and
I'm not that sure. I mean, what I've seen is that at the very core, there's one moment, there's an intimate question. There's an intimate, decision that some individual does about his own relationship to what is happening and his position. And that is super personal. And what triggers that is usually a drama. Then, this is what Mary is explaining. Mary Finn, she said, and this is what we have been talking, I used this word 3 times already. She said, I am meeting my tribe. Because suddenly because you're raising to something, you're going to meet people that are your peers. And this collectiveness, at one moment, it's the beauty of getting active, is that suddenly you believe you're alone, and suddenly you meet a group. And you are creating something together. But it really starts with your own decision. And this is not about somebody telling you, you have to do this, or it's not going to work. What I've seen, the common thread of all these people is that one day, life is presenting something, and they have reacted the same way, which is dignity and which is survival. And then, along the way, they met their tribe, they met the community, and none of them would stop doing this because, not of the impact, but because of the community they have around them. They are not doing this because they are changing the world. They are doing this because they are surrounded with people they love. And I think this is what, we were talking about the way we picture activism. Us, the media, as, usually depict as a solitary, painful, risky, This is true. But this is not only this. And this is also community, this is love, this is joy, this is collectiveness. And honestly, if you look around you, or if you look for your own life, I don't know about yours, but I think this opportunity to feel meaningful, surrounded, loved, and loving is not that often.
Louise, would you like to say something?
Yeah, I just wanted to add, I think your question is extremely important, considering that in the regular narrative of how stories are told and how we look at icons and change makers, it gets lost in the narrative of heroism. These people are saviors, it's inaccessible, it's something that not everyone can do. And really, these are remarkable people, but we're all just normal individuals like you and me. We're just everyone. We're all present around the globe, and we all have that potential to unlock. It's just a matter of either privilege or access or just taking action. And it shows, I think the movie shows as well, you don't have to have a lot of resources. You don't have to be a certain person or to look perfect to be able to take action, to be a hero or to change lives. It matters within your community and understanding local cultural context and applying that in a meaningful way that does impact someone, even in just a little small way.
And that requires making space and taking time. Here at the Graduate Institute, students do not have time. They are so busy. We put the demands on them. And we're expecting them then to go out and to lead the world, the international world. What are we doing? What are we setting them up for? To go out into the world without having the space, to not have time to have the connections, meaningful connections, not just LinkedIn connections. And I think that there's a profound cultural shift that we need to be doing here at the Graduate Institute, that those of us who have the access to how education is designed in the first place. So I wonder if a little bit on that theme of connection, and it might be easier to do this from the Philippines. What would you advise to your peers here in Geneva who want to do what you're doing, but are also indebted, worried about a job, big expectations from their families? How could you counsel them?
I think it depends on the cultural context, understanding that, first of all, the issues here and the issues in the Philippines, there are so many parallels, there's a lot of intersections. First of all, it would really help if you just took the time to learn about cultures across the world and see those parallels and intersections. I noticed that Winnie has the same issues of food security and scarcity there, and that impacts people here. And lifestyle decisions and cultural decisions here impact people in my community, whether it's because of waste, whether it's because of excessive lifestyle choices that end up fueling climate change and climate action. It's really just cultivating within yourself that idea that you need to be more conscious that your decisions right now, whether it's in this school or in your everyday life, would go on to impact people like Melati, like Winnie, like me. And just being conscious of that, I think, first of all, is important, but also knowing that, how do I explain this? They said everyone is interconnected, and it's not just interconnectedness, but the climate disasters that we experience in my community, the food insecurity, the refugee crisis, it doesn't have to happen to you. It doesn't have to happen to you. You don't have to experience it or learn about it to be concerned about that. It's just really preserving the dignity of humans, and if you care about people, then I think you should take the time to learn about that and see what you can integrate into your existing job, into your existing study, to help contribute or impact people within these communities as well.
Thank you. Who else would like to ask a question?
Hello. First of all, thank you very much for this amazing movie and the interesting conversations that you've been having so far. And one topic or theme that you've addressed several times was finding your tribe, right? And I think that's something that many of us here can relate to, for example, at the Graduate Institute or in International Geneva in general, is that it is what makes this place so unique is the energy of people who believe in a better world, who share these common values. And while that can be very comforting and motivating, I think it can also lead to a lot of polarization and disconnection from many people who don't share that same reality. And I think the change in value that you mentioned, Flor, that is, on one hand side, necessary, but in my opinion, or from my experience, is very difficult to drive forward due to this polarization, because once you confront people with a different set of values, they immediately shift into this defensive mode, and they feel like they have to justify their life choices, their career choices. I mean, the US North American activists pointed out how these kids from the fracking, from the parents with fracking who were working in the fracking industry, they obviously got offended when there was a peer making fun of or criticizing their parents' livelihood. So I wondered how you see this conflict, and how maybe you and the activists that you've met try to address these issues? And then, of course, also, Louise, how you experience that in your own community, because I think, especially with farming, I think there's also a lot of that issue at hand. Thank you.
Yeah, it's true that, thank you for this question. It's true that we are going through a very polarizing time, and that is making everything even more difficult. The one who talked to me the most about that was Mary Finn. I remember this English lady helping English young girl helping a migrant in Lesbos, and she was explaining me that the hardest part for the work for her was not the work in itself, but going back in England at university and being surrounded with people that could not care less about the migrant crisis, and she explained me that yes, she was trying to explain, but quite soon would shut down and avoid the discussion, because obviously she was feeling apart and she was definitely not in the conversation. But there's a lot of people that are feeling not fitting in this polarization thing. The way our ability to address people from, sorry for that, the other side, is really the big challenge of our time. This is the reason why I did a cinematographic movie, expecting to touch with emotions and images and music, something that I could have said in a report, in an article, in a very more direct way. We need stories, we need emotions, we need representation, we need detour to have this conversation. The problem is not polarization for me. The problem is attention deficit. People, even this very form of telling a story, a movie of 1 hour and 36 minutes. Look at the people who went out afterwards. It's just, I'm feeling bad. Honestly, I'm feeling disappointed. But it's just a natural. It's also, I'm not saying there's a conspiracy, but. It's odd how everything is made for us not to think. Not to take the time to think, not to take the time to talk. The first resistance is this refusal of being framed by 144 characters, even the double, or something like that. It's a resistance, but yeah, you stayed, thank you.
And I think part of this resistance is the great discomfort. This is painful. To get close, to get proximate is painful, because then we're confronted with ourselves. And everything in our society wants us to not see that truth. We have plenty to distract us. And then this is not intellectual work. This is a different kind of work. And as a culture, we are completely unprepared for that. This culture, if this counts as a culture, we are not prepared to do that, because it's hard. And it is also terrifying. What do you need? You need courage. You need honesty. What else do we need? This is not what's on the job descriptions that the students are applying for. Integrity, showing up. The word, again, came up throughout the film, just showing up. We're not doing that. And again, I think this is something that concretely each of us in here can do. And sit with that discomfort. And again, here, this connection with others is very helpful. And that's what we do in our classes here as well, with some of the students who are here. But knowing that we are together in this pain and discomfort. And that is a first required step to get past the denial. Louise, how do you deal with this painful space of complexity and how hard it all is?
No, I think we should have more uncomfortable conversations. I really like spaces that discuss things, because people want to avoid problems and show them from a positive, spin it as positively as they can. But reality is, you have to have the context of the painful, difficult, bloody, gritty parts of the conversation. And I think in terms of the question on polarization, especially in the activism sphere, from my own experience, the moment you say you're an activist, it already triggers an idea in people's minds that you're either a tree hugger or you're someone who's angry, or angry young child protesting, or someone who feels like they're a victim of something and they just need to demand a space. And there's this immediate idea. And oftentimes, especially with films like these, and of course these spaces, we find people and we're preaching to people who are already aware and conscious and trying to change that. But we don't preach to the people who don't want to have these conversations, who don't want to talk to an activist because they're in a fossil fuel industry or in the agriculture industry. In fact, the agricultural industry for me is pretty interesting, considering that it's one of the most unsustainable industries. It's contributing to 1/3 of greenhouse gas emissions. But I tell people that's why we need to go there. We need to talk about this and show that we need to have these reforms and changes, because if not, then who will? And it's going to be run by people who are continually going to be ignorant. So yes, it's important to be an activist in these difficult places and probably infiltrate those industries that are polarized or massively unaware of the importance of environmentalism, of humanitarianism, of making sure that people preserve their dignity and restore these landscapes, because otherwise, how will we bring change?
And you live this dignity, Louise, and the dignity comes out in this film. Flo, that's hard to do. Can we recognize the dignity in the others as well, that big industrial complex, and the humanity in that, and the fear and the uncertainty that is on the other side as well? I think that is hard work, but possible if we take the space and take the time. We have some very good questions coming from all of you. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Who else would like to speak? I see Elise in the back row, unless someone else had their hand raised first. Yeah. Brenda.
Good evening, everyone. I'm one of the finalists for the Geneva Challenge just ended, so I was around and I talked to Lena. She said I could join. Because,
Welcome and congratulations.
Thank you. So I'm really excited to meet with people who think like me in the person of Louise. I'm really impressed. But from my part of the world, we have a lot of challenges. We have financial crisis, we have political crisis, instability most especially. That has limited our efforts to take action. So much so that many people are scared of losing their lives. If you want to go into activism, your family sits you down and warn you against it. They won't want to lose you. This is a government where you don't speak against. You don't say the government is doing this. It's preferable we do like this to sustain us all. The government does not want the truth. And this has limited a lot of young people. I am a geographer from background. I started my kind of activism when I was 16. And growing to 18 years when I entered the university, it was a little challenging because my grandmother sat me down and said, you have come as a blessing and I don't want to lose you young. So when you start telling people about the environment, when you start speaking that plastics are wrong, when you start telling the government that they have abandoned people in risk areas, because it is wrong, they will kill you before your time. I had to draw back. It had a lot of negative impact on me. I felt like, sincerely, I don't want to die young. Let me be true to myself. It's not because I want to fight for people that I should die myself. So it really slowed down my pace. Not until I got a scholarship with the Pan-African University Institute of Water and Energy Sciences in Algeria. That has exposed me to a lot, and that's the platform that brought me to Geneva Challenge, where we form a team. And now, today, I'm seeing and I'm meeting with young professionals and activists all over the world, and I need your advice. I need your mentorship. I need your counseling so that I can go back and, let's find a strategy where I can go back without being scared of losing my life. You get friends, you get even people who are in the government advising you that I have a personal relationship with your father, and I'm warning him to talk to you because I don't want you to die young. And now you see situations where you have people who are like-minded like you within the community, but all their setback is, we don't want to join you in this because they will come for us. Where does that leave you? How can you push? How can you save the situation? How can you gather people? They know and they are willing to join you if the situation was better, if the crisis was not the way it is, if people were not scared of their lives. But now, how can we go about this kind of a government where no one speaks, when you speak and you're threatened. And so it is becoming an issue because the problem is getting, as the years go by, it's becoming more tedious and is aggravating to something else. It's almost escalating because people are virtually escaping their own country, not because they don't love it, but the means is not there. Yeah, Cameroon has recently, in the past 3 years, it has reached, it's one of the most tracked country for migration for the past 3 years due to the political instability and with the dissatisfaction of the way things are going there. But that doesn't stop us. Some of us have come here, my friends are expecting, they're calling me on phone, don't come back. Stay in Europe, even if it means to pick leaves on the street, even if it means to walk, what kind of thing, don't come back to Cameroon. What will you be doing? But that's not the way I see it. I'm like, I have a future, I have a life I want to protect, I have my people who look up to me. When I was doing my master's thesis, it was like, one woman met me when I went because I'm in climate change and war. She was like, when I see you, I see hope. When I see you, I feel like if you cannot help me, you help my child. That touched me a lot, and I felt like this is my place. I can only gather experiences from far and wide, but I need to help these people because they need some of us. So, Louise, I don't know from your experiences and from our panelists, I don't know what you can tell me on how to break the chain and get the people that are interested in my mindset acting. Yeah, thank you.
Oh, Alice, before you give away your mic, could I ask what it is exactly that you do in your work?
Yeah. Okay, one very important thing I've realized is government has mapped out risk zones, like areas where landslides are they often occur. They have also mapped out areas like close to the sea where, the dangers surrounding the sea. But you realize that these places are where people group themselves and choose to live. These people don't live there because they like it. They live there because they see that it is a source of income for them. Like those close to the sea, I have pictures, I have videos that I have gathered when I visited a community for wash aspects because they were one of my sample communities. When you talk to them, the people tell you, this sea like this, every month we can have fish for up to $5,000, $10,000 per week, and it gives us a lot of income. We cannot live. But when the waves are so high, when there is danger in the sea, it affects them. It pulls down their houses, but they don't live. They only move a little away further inland and then come back in 1 week or so. So the government has stopped them from living there, and the fact that the people are stubborn enough, the government does not have time for them anymore. But if you look at it critically, most of these people are refugees. Most of them have fled from neighboring Nigeria, from conditions that doesn't favor them as well. And some of them are internally displaced, still from Cameroon. Now they are seeking refuge to where it can be economically viable. Now, the trend is, why is the government neglecting their needs? Because they have decided to live there if they give them a better option. Because the government only tells you, don't live there, leave that place and settle somewhere else in the space. They don't provide the condition. They don't say, okay, this is a camp that has been built for refugees. Maybe from what I can see in Uganda, they have built huts that we have international organizations that WHO that come and say, okay, people should take this, take mattresses. They have not given refuge to these people. They have not provided a space for them. Yet they just give them a way to say, leave the place. And these people don't leave because they have nowhere to go. This is actually a crisis. And now because they have nowhere to go, you want to voice it out. The government says, we have warned them. Is it all about warning them? It's about providing for them. And another problem is, the second issue is reproductive health and child welfare. It's a big issue in Cameroon. When the crisis began, so many people moved away from their homes. It were burnt down, their houses were burnt down, their farms were burnt down, and so many women moved with children at hand or some pregnant. What is the fate of these women? Some are giving birth in the bushes, some die, no care, nothing. And young girls in the age of 15, 12, who are starting to menstruate, young boys who need contraceptives in order to get into whatever activity. Families are multiplying because reproductive health is not being controlled in times of crisis. These are two issues that really pain my heart, and I think that we need action in my country. And maybe other countries within Africa are facing it. I don't know. I really need help.
Well, thank you for that. So from what I'm hearing, the issue is really systemic. It's also educational. People don't see the urgency, don't understand how important it is. So first of all, I want to mention that activism takes on many forms. It doesn't exactly have to be aggressive or right out there. It could just be educational. It could teach people this is why this is important and spreading awareness to the community. Whether it's influencing culture, making sure that they know how valuable it is to, first of all, learn about reproductive health or address taboos, because a lot of culture is very conservative, even in the Philippines. We won't want to talk about those difficult topics just because, you know, our parents taught us it's inappropriate. But reality is you need to start addressing it. So I think there are ways to slowly influence a system, that it doesn't have to exactly be out there protesting, or maybe you could continuously write proposals to government officials or hold bilateral meetings with individuals and organizations and NGOs who are trying to address this and try to get them within the country and find these people, see what they need, see what those specific aspects are that you could possibly tweak and find solutions for. It might not be the whole issue, but it could be one aspect and then slowly build from there. Like for my project, it began as typhoon relief, and then it started going into systemic food issues in education, in supply chain management. So it can be a very slow transition, and it's difficult, it's not easy, but it will take time, and you'll just find that time passes by, and you'll look back and realize, oh, we started on this very, very small thing, maybe we helped one person, and now we've gotten all this way because we kept persevering on this mission and made sure that people understood and slowly influenced that as well. So I hope it's helpful to you.
And to have the connection, so I know the two of you will exchange contact information after this panel here.
Absolutely.
And what the Youth Activist Summit is doing is exemplary in this regard, you know, and also, you know, the film festival that we're making these connections so that you don't need to feel so alone, you know, so that your voice is heard. Rene does this in the film, you know, his work with the media, you know, and Melati asks him, is this part of how you protect yourself? And indeed, because we can all see, and there's a great power, I think, in witnessing as well in all of this. So you have a doubt.
You know, you know, who am I to say? I mean, it's what I felt is that at the end of the day, they know the risks. They know it's a thin line, but as you said, they really pay attention not to be too confrontational. And for example, Winnie, you know, could care less. I mean, Uganda's government is really hard, and she just she wants not to be. She does everything not to wear the attention, except the film. But I mean, and that might put her in danger. Actually, maybe she was safer when she was absolutely not known. So you know, I mean, yeah, Renee said that. Like having a reputation and a lot of followers, etc., is an armor. I just don't know. But yeah, what you were saying, Louise, is absolutely true. There's many ways to be an activist. I mean, and just raising your child differently is a way to, you know, it's not necessarily the confrontation. It may ended up like this. But it may end up like this. But the route to it is very, very different. But again, I'm quite not at ease to answer your question because I obviously live in a country where we respect human rights differently. So, but thank you for sharing.
Yes, thank you very much. We have 5 minutes left, and I know that there was one question over there. I think you'd still like to present it, Alice, and perhaps if those of you were finishing, but if you'd like to ask more questions one-on-one after, I think that would be great. And so, Alice, if you could ask, and then I will hand it over to both of you for sort of closing remarks. Go ahead, over to you.
Thank you. I'll try to be quick. So I'm a student here at the Graduate Institute, and you were talking, Claudia, about this institution. And I don't think in Geneva it's a question of knowledge, because here we are taught every day about climate change. We are taught every day about migration crisis, not the migration crisis, the welcoming crisis in Europe. We are taught every day about how an elite is accumulating wealth by dispossessing so many of us. But I was wondering, how can we, within those walls, transform young people like me into activists? Because we are, it feels to me, we are a generation of sometimes emotionally constipated people. Uh, we fear a lot of things. I was in class this week, and a student wouldn't call, for example, the Uyghur genocide a genocide, and we are. It feels to me, you say, Claudia, we are fearing those uncomfortable discussion, and it feels to me that here we're not having enough of those uncomfortable discussions. But what do we do to become activists and not go into the UN? Because a lot of us are going to write reports about the migration crisis and be in those buildings right across the street. But how do we keep in mind and stay, I don't know, keep that rage and become activists and take the time to be taught about activism?
All right, so
It's
we're
really
making a
interesting,
checklist
yeah.
of things that we're all expected to do after we go home tonight. So go ahead, Louise, and then Flo, you can close. Yeah.
Yeah, I just have to say, you have to disrupt your reality. I mean, I had, you know, activism is a privilege, and many people as well in the activism sphere are from places, as was mentioned earlier, that, you know, you can go out there, you can be an activist, you can speak up against your government or say these things, and it's fine. And then other people tend to start being an activist and start getting, try to disrupt the system and then end up being part of the system. And then there are also people who are just completely ignorant. So I guess you have to really disrupt that reality and show people this is what's going on the ground and see the real aspect of it. That we're not just statistics and numbers. We are names and faces and individuals and people who are experiencing these. And just because you're not one of us, or well, you are technically one of us. In fact, with the climate crisis, with food security, global soil degradation and pollution, it's going to impact even global north countries. So it's really just communicating that urgency and also showing people and making them uncomfortable and not being afraid of that and questioning it. Like, why don't you want to say the word genocide when this is the reality of it? These are, I could show you, for example, friends of mine who are activists who have experienced and who still see that genocide, especially in indigenous communities that experience land grabbing from huge corporations. And that still exists as an everyday reality, and it's showing that this is still going on, and it's impacting you and me. So I guess it's a small way of doing that, yeah.
Wow. I would say disrupt yourself. I mean, the whole thing about growing old is about losing this very connection to the child in yourself and to your own spontaneity and your naivety and your curiosity and everything. And everything we do growing up or as an adult to our kids is like narrowing down that. And, you know, for you to conform to whatever job you're going to have on the other side of the road, whatever things. So it's a personal decision for you to resist that and to find a way still to, you know, live in this society where we ask you to conform somewhere. But it's really about, I would be less pragmatic. Do what makes you happy. Never compromise with that. It's simple and it's very difficult. Because honestly, growing up, entering adulthood and getting a job and you know, all the things is super boring. It's super boring. And we are asked that. We are asked to do this. And some of us rebel. Most of us do not rebel. And then we end up being sad adults. I'm sorry, but that's the end game. I mean, that is what is happening. And the question is, what can you do in your life? And it's not like you can have maybe some small part of your life where you stay true to yourself, and then you nurture this and you protect this. And when you have the ability or possibility to grow that space because you venture out, because you find another job, because you find a partner who open a door somewhere or just trigger something in you, use this. So it's not like I have a recipe, But it's really, really simple. I think we are in a society that is organizing our own sadness. Because when you're sad, you conform. Well, start by fighting for your joy. And what I've learned with this activist, and I'm sorry, I'm going to say that again, because this is such, it was something that I was really not expecting, is that when you are getting committed to something bigger than you, you are connecting to your joy. And this is the reason why they are doing this. And this is the reason why they are forgetting about what the government might do to them. Because here and now, they are happy. And they are connected to this source of joy. So I hope that helps. But this is something that I found on the road.
It's beautiful. Thank you so much. Thank you for being here, Louise. Thank you for making this beautiful film. When you speak to your friends, tell them that they have impacted our lives as well. Thank you all for being here.
You can write to them, by the way.
Thank you for being here all tonight. This is important work. So we wish you well. Have a good evening, good weekend, and I guess we close. Yeah, Lena? All right. Film festival? Okay, we can go? All right. Thank you.